In the summer of 2010, motor yacht Venture 2, a Fleming 65, made the journey from Southampton in southern England to Iceland and back, a journey of some 5,000 miles. But for myself, the real focus of this trip began with our arrival in Scotland. But first we had to cover the nearly 800 miles of rugged coastline between Southampton and the island of Jura. On our first day we had planned a short leg from our starting point at Shamrock Quay to Yarmouth on the Isle of Wight. The following morning we set off before dawn past Hurst Castle, built by Henry VIII in 1544. The sun rose over the Isle of Wight and cast its early light over the jagged Needles. This South Cardinal buoy marked the approaches to Dartmouth estuary. The estuary has ancient forts on one side and Dartmouth Castle on the other. In times of war, a chain was strung across the estuary every night to protect the twin towns of Kingswear to starboard and Dartmouth to port. At dawn the following morning, the contrails that laced the sky told us that flights were no longer grounded by the volcano in Iceland, our ultimate destination. This ancient cannon, cast in Russia in 1826, pointed the way to the harbour entrance and Dartmouth Castle. This is not a coast where you want to miss the harbour entrance, although over the centuries a large number of ships have done exactly that. Just 8 weeks before our visit, it was announced that a 3,000-year-old wreck from the Bronze Age had been found in these waters. The hazards are not confined to the shore. This lighthouse marks the Eddystone Rocks, 9 miles off the coast. This lighthouse marks the entrance to Falmouth Harbour, the departure and arrival point for many famous voyages, including HMS Beagle on her return from the Galapagos in 1836. After an overnight stop, Andy stows all the lines for the rough passage to the Scilly Isles, which lie 28 miles beyond the western tip of England, past the Lizard. As anticipated, the seas increased, but were normal conditions for local fishing boats. The next hazard was Wolf Rock Lighthouse, another treacherous rock 9 miles off the coast of Cornwall. These old photographs show some of the hazards faced by the lighthousemen when these lighthouses were manned. At last the Scilly Isles hove into view, with Round Island Lighthouse prominent on the horizon. We turned into the anchorage between the islands of Tresco and Bryher and picked up a mooring close by Cromwell's 17th century castle. As we would be leaving in the middle of the following night, we rigged the mooring line so it would be easy to cast off in the dark. blustery wind subsided as the sun sank towards the horizon. The following morning we took the tender for a short visit to the main town of St. Mary's. Tourism and the export of cut flowers are the main business of these islands. Bluebells and their white cousins overlook a quiet anchorage. I came across this box of sea urchin shells with an honesty box for payment. We left at 4 o'clock in the morning across the Celtic Sea for Kinsale in southern Ireland, passing very close to the wreck site of the Lusitania. Charles Fort, another monster fortress built in the 17th century, guards the entrance to Kinsale Harbour. The weather was horrible, with poor visibility and driving rain. Our friends here told us it was the worst day they'd had in months. Fortunately, the weather greatly improved the following day, and we enjoyed the harbour and explored this charming town with its whimsical touches. Here King Neptune is looking a bit green. Our next port of call was Kilmore Quay, just up the coast. The green area on the chart shows water depths of 0 feet. So to enter the harbour, you have to drive straight at the shore and then turn sharp left into this narrow entrance, obstructed by battered steel fishing boats loosely moored to the dock. No prizes for guessing who'd come off worst in any close encounters. Kilmore Quay is a harbour entirely given over to commercial fishing. Venture looked quite out of place amongst the rough and ready boats, for which visible evidence of maintenance did not seem to rate high on the list of priorities. When we came to leave the following morning, fog was our challenge for the day, with visibility down to less than 1/4 mile. But at least the entrance was clear. Despite the fog, the wind was strong, making the seas choppy and confused. Our next destination was Howth, not far from Dublin, still further north up the Irish coast. We entered the harbour at extreme low tide, and the channel markers leaned drunkenly in all directions, making it hard to pick out the channel. We asked a couple of cormorants, but they just shrugged their wings.